Also, we'll focus on the Adentan constituency still in the Greater Accra region and find out why they are not likely to give any parliamentary candidate 2 terms. Stay tuned. He said the analyst should join. Thank you for staying with us here on Election 360. Now, Ghana has become a two-party state by default, with the National Democratic Congress, NDC, and the New Patriotic Party, NPP, emerging as the only political parties with sufficient national appeal to win elections and form government. Through the power of the ballot, each of them has had the chance of being in government as well as serving as the official opposition. Notwithstanding their dominance in Ghana's democratic politics, neither party has the support of more than 40% of the country's electoral population. This leaves a significant portion of the electorate unaligned to any political party, given the candidates in presidential elections in Ghana can only win with more than 50% of valid votes cast. Swing voters undoubtedly hold the balance of the power. The Central and the Greater Accra regions of Ghana occupy a unique place in the country's political landscape, often serving as a decisive factor in presidential elections. Since the return to multi-party democracy in 1992, the Central region has consistently aligned with the winning presidential candidate with 23 constituencies. The Central region has been a battleground that political parties keenly focus on due to its unpredictable yet decisive electoral behavior. In every election cycle since 1992, the Central region has tilted in favor of eventual winner, making it a crucial swing region. Both the National Democratic Congress and the New Patriotic Party understand the success in this region can be a good omen for winning the presidency. The region's diverse economic and social makeup mirrors the broader Ghanaian electorate with a combination of urban, semi-urban and rural constituencies. This has made it a prime focus for political campaigns. Well, joining me in studio today is my colleague Martin Asiedu-Date, and then Ebenezer Nimakunyaku. He's the founder and CEO of EN Analytics and Consulting Limited. Thank you so much for your time. The Central region, we'll start off with that. It's quite interesting. It's interesting to note that the NDC, since 1992, has always fielded somebody from the Central region, either as a running mate or as a candidate. And interesting, so I noticed that out of the many times that they've done this, 5 out of the times that they went with a vice president running mate, they won 3 out of it. Does that spell a good sign for June this time? Well, guys, welcome to the show. I'll take your initial thoughts, Martin. What do you make of generally these 2 swing states?
Yeah, so I would start by saying that, and it's a statement I have said a few times, that the Central region and the NDC have had a relationship since '92. However, the region has not done good by the NDC, although the NDC is heavily reliant and dependent on them for their electoral fortunes. They really do not seem to care if you choose a candidate from our region or not. However, as time goes on, there seems to be some understanding between the political party, the NDC, and the Central region as one of the key swing regions, and today we'll be discussing it in detail to find out what the underlying factors are and what the constituents look out for. Because you recall that when Ko Kensenaka was the first vice presidential candidate chosen from that region for Jerry John Rawlings, because then we had just started the democratic process, the NDC won by a vast margin. We cannot say that Kensenaka's selection helped in that. I think the major factor everybody would agree to was Chairman Rawlings. However, since then, the party has stuck with picking someone, including even a presidential candidate. The likes of John Evans Atta Mills, Prof, the late, was from there as presidential candidate. He lost twice and was only successful in the 3rd time. And between those periods when he lost, those years, so in 2008 and in 2004 and in 2008, you can tell that the Central regional margins that they voted for the NDC was nothing really to write home about, which didn't even propel Professor Mills to become the president of the day. So all of these dynamics underlie why the party themselves would want to maybe realign their relationship or reassess their relationship with the region in terms of who they select from that place. The NPP, on the other hand, has had somewhat of a good cop, bad cop kind of relationship with the Central region, because their focus, the NPP's focus, is on two key regions. And if you look at the dynamics that go into selecting a candidate, whether presidential candidate or the running mate, the NPP hardly, in fact, has not considered the central region at all. But they want to have a north-south divide or someone who can satisfy these dynamics.
Which they have been consistent with over the period.
Very consistent with, over the period. And it looks as though going into 2024, a number of things that have happened since 2016 when NPP has been in power is likely to tell on why the region would or would not vote for the NPP. And so it's good that we have Mr. Ebenezer Nimakonyako with us. He will walk us through the numbers, and then we'll also speak to our correspondent on the ground who has gauged the mood and the thoughts of the constituents in the central region to give us what they make of the key issues that will influence or help them decide who they vote for. It's
interesting you mentioned Accra over there. Interestingly, in 1996, I gather he ran against Chairman Rawlings and lost.
Yes.
Quite so interesting one there. So it isn't the central region effect automatically from what you said earlier there about the Chairman Rawlings effect. Thank you very much, Evans. I've almost missed your name. So your initial thoughts, what do you make of all of the central region, especially in focus?
Yes, so I think, first of all, let us give our viewers a perspective of what we mean when you say a region or a constituency is a swing region or a swing constituencies. Mostly it comes in with about 3 or 4 characteristics. One, it means that the parties have virtually and evenly divided support on the ground. The second characteristic is that their performance are always very close. And then because of that, the margins are small. Swing regions or constituencies are also termed as what we call battleground constituencies or regions. And then finally, their voting patterns are unpredictable. Nobody can predict their outcomes from the beginning of the contest.
Isn't that questionable, considering the fact that we know that every 8 years, the central region swings to opposition?
Yeah, so that is the pattern in Ghana. But you still don't know how the final outcome will be. So, for example, Greater Accra has been a swing region, but in 2020, I mean, they went against their expected, predicted outcome. And so, swing regions or constituencies are regions and constituencies whereby, I mean, the outcomes of both elections for the two parties are very close, and they hold the key in deciding who wins or becomes the president of the country. So this is the general characteristics of what we mean by a region or a constituency being a swing region or constituency.
Okay, but looking at the patterns, do you usually see the outcomes also reflect the same in terms of the percentage in the wins, for instance, like, judging from the central region conversation that you just...
Yeah, so sometimes it is, in Ghana for now, we have virtually a two-term cycle, let's say, voting pattern when it comes to the Central and Greater Accra. So Greater Accra and Central, they have always had this two-term cycle for the president. And so you realize that irrespective of sometimes either the president or the vice president coming in from Central region, it has not had that effect on how they vote. The outcomes have always been the two-term for the government in power. And so, for example, Nana Jane Mensah was the running mate in 2020, and it didn't have that much effect on the outcome of the voting pattern in the Central region. Okay,
so you walk us through the numbers. Your screen is active over there.
Yes, so you look at, this is how the national pattern is, and you realize that in 2020, our registered voters, I mean nationwide, we had 17 million, and then you had valid vote cast was 13.2 million. The turnout nationally, I mean, it was very high in 2020. That was a 79.47. And then the margin between the NPP and the NDC in the 2020 election was a wholesome amount, 510,000 votes.
Which is about half the previous year's margins, the previous election year's margin, of about 1 million.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, what happened is that, 2016 was an overperformance year for the NPP. And so, as we go along the elections here, there's going to be the correction of that 2016 realignment of the 2016.
And it's also instructive to note that these figures are the national figures, national figures of the number of people who registered, the number of people who actually turned out to vote, and then the voter percentage. And all of these are below, especially the voter turnout and then the margin, below the 2016 figure, because in 2016, the voter turnout and the margin that the NPP won by was quite huge. In fact, over almost 1 million or over margin between the NDC and the NPP. But like he's saying, as time goes on, in 2020, we saw that a number of the constituencies, especially that voted for NPP because there was this wind of change that was blowing across the country. A number of them reverted or reset and went back to the NDC. That's how come the NPP lost its majority in parliament by quite a wholesome, all over 40 or so seats. So let's now, like he indicated, go to some of the specific dynamics. And today our concentration is on Central region. We'll do those dynamics, then come to the Greater Accra region and look at 2020, especially why the 2020 seemed to have differed off slightly from being called a swing region. It still remains a swing region, I'm sure.
Sure.
All right.
So this is the voting pattern.
National pool.
Yes, from the year 2000. So you can see that the NPP won nationally in 2000, 2004, and in the first round of 2008, they won. Okay. Then the second round, then NDC took over, and then NDC improved their performance in 2012, won handsomely, and then in 2016, Nanado's message of hope came in, and then they won by one of their largest margins. 53.59. The NPP has never had that ratio in the Fourth Republic, except for Nanado in 2016. Right. So you can see the support that Nanado enjoyed in 2016. It was massive. For you to get 53%, close to 54, it is unheard of in the Fourth Republic, except for 1992 when the NPP boycotted part of the elections. Okay. But from the year 2000, where we will say that elections have been very competitive. Nanado showing in 2016 was outstanding, astronomical.
And again, it's interesting if you look very closely at how this line graph looks like. Anytime the NPP has won, they have gone past 51, at least 51. So in 2008, that was the second term of John Ajikum Kufuor. So comparatively, you can say people started either losing trust in him or something changed.
Incumbent apathy.
Again, and in 2008, that's when Professor John Evans Atta Mills became president of the Republic. Yeah. And this is a national poll we are looking at, or how Ghanaians turned out to vote. And in 2008, although the NDC won the national elections, the NPP actually won. Okay, so this is not a central region. Yeah. And then it looks as though that although the NDC won, their margin nationally was still quite. It didn't cross. The NPP did better in 2008 than the NPP,
especially in the first round.
The first round.
Yeah. Okay. So, gentlemen, let's go deeper now into Central Region proper and understand how the region fared 2020. What's the trend? What are the trends looking like? And how much of a big deal is this swing region?
So he's going to start from the Central region. And again, we are looking at this region based on the fact that it has stayed consistent, like he indicated, with its character of being a swing region, irrespective of whatever dynamics or promises you make them. They have a certain mindset of their own, and they will later dig into specific constituencies in the region.
But you see, it'll be interesting to know the dynamics of the Central region, because Accra is very metropolitan, cosmopolitan, filled with different people. Accra is almost nobody's land, in quote, because you find a very diverse group of people here. Central region doesn't entirely mimic that, does it?
Yeah, so this is the graph of Central Region. So that time I said that Central Region is the only region with 100% record of electing the president. So you look at the graph of Central Region and it follows exactly the national graph. There is no distinction. If you are winning in Central, you are winning the national presidency. That is how they vote. And so they have 100% record of electing who becomes the president. You look at 2016, 2020, it went for the NPP, and NPP, they are in power. 2028, you realize that
NDC was in power at that time.
Yes. 2012, it went for Professor Mills.
Mills, yeah.
So they are national.
Who's from the region, by the way?
Yes. Their voting pattern mimics exactly the national. And when we come to actually within the region, there are a lot of swing constituencies. In fact, Central Region is the only region with the highest number of swing constituencies within that region.
Which also mimic equally the national polls.
So the Central Region has become more or less a reflection of everything Ghanaian.
Wow.
You get it? Because you have part of the region that are fishermen, you have a very relatively educated populace, voting populace. And so they and Greater Accra, they virtually vote in tandem. The only departure was in 2020. So this is how Central Region has performed over the years. And I said they are very good predictors of who become the president.
Interesting. Martin, you know the Central Region is also an education hub. I gather that is why Free SHS did a lot of work over there for them and got their buy-in, and of course with the economic impact that has in the region. I don't know what you also think may have worked in 2020 to have 2016 to have gotten their buy-in, still maintained into 2020.
Then again, taking off from where Eben left off, the interesting coincidence is that I think, like he's indicating, they just have a mind of their own. See, so the entire country can decide to go in a certain direction, but the Central Region stays true to itself. They can decide, and consistently they've decided to give whichever government is in power a 2-term, and then they change their minds again. And we said that, first of all, they are one of their own, which is Professor John Evans Atta-Mills, contested in the 2000 elections, in 2004 elections, but did not get the nod of the region people. If you look at 2008, when John Evans Atta-Mills won the first time, even look at that. It was quite marginal. It didn't go past, it was really close. 47.12 for the NPP, 49 for the NDC. Before 2012, when the sympathy votes across the country for the NDC helped John Dramani Mahama become president of the day. Even then, you can tell that the margin that John Ajekum Kufuor got in 2004 was even higher than NDC winning, although the late vice president, who was also from the Central Region, was a key candidate for them. Then they changed their minds again in 2016. And it tells you that the pattern with which they have voted has stayed consistent. And the underlying factors, we'll definitely get our correspondent, who is also on the ground, to help us have an understanding of what exactly the people think and why they vote the way they vote. Interesting.
You see, the Central Region is also an education hub. So let's just on a lighter note say that maybe they are very educated elites who know what they want and don't just go with the flow. But interestingly, Free SHS was a big deal there, like we mentioned earlier, especially because, they have a significant number of secondary schools in there. I hear the residents were very excited about taking the opportunity. Many people who, for instance, couldn't have afforded to go to secondary school took advantage of that. And I think we don't even talk enough about the impact, the economic side of Free SHS, because a lot of people, even landlords who, a lot of people who couldn't get dormitories, accommodation issues, were renting within these communities. And how interesting when students appear in a community, suddenly rent goes up. That's an interesting dynamics over there. And beyond that, there's also the issue of the promise that was made to them about an airport and a harbour.
Maybe we'll look at that going into 2024. But that particular promise has become an albatross around the neck of Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia.
But I'm sure it played a role, at least to the lead up to the elections.
Yes, and now that they've come to say, well, he said it, but it's not likely that we will give you an airport and a harbor. Maybe that issue can be let go for now. Definitely, it will still be on the minds of some people who probably started looking at how they can take advantage of these kinds of political promises. And political parties need to be more cautious of what they say when they go to the ground, because it could turn around, like you indicated. The free senior high school policy, people within the central region, because of the senior high schools in there, they have about 3 or 4 key senior high schools in the central region. They saw an economic boom. If you have more people coming in, people will put up structures to house them, markets will open up. It actually opens up the entire region. So it was a promise that they hooked their expectations on, and now that the government of the day won and have implemented it, somewhat, depending on where you stand, there are those who say it's successful, it's still struggling. However, they saw a potential boom for their economy and for their own lives, and many can say that that actually influenced their decision to vote for the NPP.
And you know, a significant number of those who would benefit from the free SHS by the end of the cycle would be ready to vote, because majority of them would have reached that age and and you know, interestingly too, the election period happens whilst they are still in school. So it's most likely a lot of these students will register within their school area and vote there. And of course, their bias will be obvious. But Martin, walk us through what will be the key considerations for voters in the central region?
So we know that beyond education, they also have a number of factories that has become a political football. Key amongst them will be the Commander Sugar Factory.
The same place the president made some interesting comments?
Yes. So it's also instructive to know that some people within the region, in last few surveys that we have observed, say that job opportunities is a major contributory factor to what they would inform which way they vote. So job opportunities, topical for them. Promises that have been made that they believe have failed or have not been fully implemented would touch on the Commander Sugar Factory again. The promise of an airport, the promise of a fishing harbor, these two actually were made by the current administration. The Commander Sugar Factory, NDC, over the years have said that they promised they were going to resurrect the sugar factory. They actually did. Based on what the NDC or the government of the day analyzed, they had set it in motion. They bought new equipment to get it to start running. They actually got some farmers. He actually started processing sugar. But when there was a change in government, and you know, that's another challenge that as a nation we need to look at. One government sets up, gives a promise, actually starts implementing it. They may have a source of funding to keep that particular promise running. If another government comes in and they believe that they may not be able to get that reliable source of funding to keep it running, it could truncate and then affect institutions like the Commander Sugar Factory, which currently, as we speak, is struggling. Some say it's been shut down. Government wants to actually sell it off because they believe that it will give them more money to reinvest elsewhere.
Not sell it off entirely, at least a long lease of a sort, according to what the trade minister said. However, Gao isn't pleased with that move because they think that why give it to a foreign national and the Ghanaians who can raise the money to run it. But we'll get more into that. We have joining us via Zoom Central Regional Correspondent Thomas Khan. Thank you so much for your time. Now, you have been interacting with prospective voters on the key issues which will inform the voting party. Tell us, what is the general impression about the government so far?
I think a number of issues have been touched on. Just to begin with, where Martin was mentioning some of the promises that were made. For instance, you remember going into 2015 and 2020, the Kunfi factory was a big deal. And you remember when the One District, One Factory initiative was beginning, the Kunfi fruits factory was the first to be commissioned. And when that company came to be in 2020, it was a big deal. The people of Central Region at large were really happy that at least a promise that was made to them has been fulfilled. And you know, and when you go to the Kofi Enclave, that is where we have a lot of the factories. I mean, the only factory within that enclave, because the people over there have been calling for jobs, and finally, the coffee factory was established. So it was a big deal, and that also attracted a lot of people from the region to vote for the NPP. That is why you remember in 2020, the people, when the results came, it turned out to be a skirt and blouse sort of pattern, where President Akufo-Addo won massively. But unfortunately, the NPP lost a number of seats in the central region. So the people this time, the dynamics, when you speak to a lot of the people, they say they are disappointed, especially with the promise that every district was going to get a factory. As we speak now, the coffee fruit factory is struggling to survive. Some even say it's not functioning, but again, we do know that it is still there. It has not been shut down. And then again, when you go to Commander in the KEA district, which is also a big deal to the people, because this is a factory that used to be there in Nkrumah era.
Yeah.
And
so, Thomas, just to cut it, so clearly from what you've said, the jobs conversation is going to be top on the list for residents in the central region and infrastructure. What are the prospects looking into the elections, especially for the NPP against the NDC? And do you think the free SHS conversation will wash this time around still?
Well, I think that there are some who believe that the free SHS came to help a good number of people, because like you mentioned, we have a number of secondary schools here in the central region, and people think that their wards or their family members benefited from that. So again, there are some who believe that the free SHS policy came to help. There are others who think that it wasn't enough. They were dependent on the government to make sure that the economy was good and all of that. So when it comes to that, the free SHS, people seem to be very divided on that.
Yeah.
But there are some who believe that the free SHS is good, and then they would consider voting for the NPP. There are others who think that the free SHS is not enough.
Okay.
It's the economy, that is why they voted.
So, Thomas, quickly touch on how all of this translates into how the MPs are going to fare in these elections.
Well, from our investigations, it looks like a number of people are not enthused about the MPs in the central region. Remember, prior to the 2020 elections, the NPP had about 19 seats out of the 23. But unfortunately, after the 2020 elections, the NPP dropped and then had less than just about 10 seats in parliament, which didn't look good for the party. But again, when we're analyzing, we're talking about the choice of running mate and all of that.
Yeah.
Remember, I think what we're also picking is that the NPP were also strategic in choosing Alex, who is from the central region as the majority leader.
Yeah.
Knowing that central region is a swing region. So if the NDC is going for somebody from the region as running mate, why don't we also get somebody who will be stronger to convince the people of the central region so that we can win some votes? And then years after when you go to the Election360 constituency, which seemed to be a safe seat for the NPP, when you go there, the people love him. And he's done a number of things for the Election360 constituency. And then that is why I'm sure the NPP decided to reward him as a majority leader and also somebody from the region who can also pull some votes.
Some very interesting dynamics there. Thomas, thank you so much. That's Thomas, our Central Regional Correspondent. You're still watching Election360. My name is Michael Obodi. We'll take a short breather. When we'll come back, we'll bring you more. Please stay tuned.
Na depi ya dabone mami chini no. Na swene ya chua me maximum regular hair relaxer.
Yeah, welcome back. This is Election 360, where we've been bringing you an analysis of the two swing regions in the country, major ones, the Central and the Greater Accra region. We know there's been some outlier with the Greater Accra region, and we'll be exploring all of that in a moment. But we have our in-house data analyst. Please walk us through. So tell us about the Central region peculiarly and how it relates to the Greater Accra region.
So if you are analyzing the swing regions,
yeah,
you have to analyze Central and Greater Accra together.
Together?
Because they move in tandem.
Okay.
Okay. They are both non-aligned. Historically, they don't have a particular political bloc that they belong to. So they are free thinkers. And that makes them the swing, that gives them that swing nature and the characteristics. So if you look at Central and Greater Accra, the winning margin or line that you need to win through to become, if you are in opposition, to become president, is the 52% mark. Okay, if you are not winning, if you go through the statistics, if you are in opposition and you want to become president, and you are not getting 52% in both Greater Accra and Central, you are not becoming a president.
Wow.
You get it? So in 2020, you can see that NDC won Greater Accra. But they won it below the 52% mark. which is required. It's a requirement for you to become president of Ghana. Okay. So you just don't win the swing regions. You must win by at least 52%. That is the criteria.
Very interesting dynamics there.
Exactly. And the reason, one of the reasons why NDC lost Greater Accra and they still maintained power.
NPP, you mean?
NPP.
Yeah.
Sorry, in 2020 was because they have opened up a corridor in the north, in the northern region and in the northeast. And this helps them, and that helped them to form some sort of a buffer to counteract the loss that they had in Greater Accra. And so you realize that what's run through is the 52% mark. If you are becoming you are in a position you are becoming president, you need the 52%.
The 52%.
Exactly.
Interesting.
If not, you are not coming into power.
Okay, you give us more there. But Martin, tell me, what do you think may have accounted for the NDC's win in the Greater Accra region? It's quite interesting because I'm also surprised that Central region didn't toe the same line as the Greater Accra region. But what are your thoughts?
And what we also see from here is that, like you indicated, maybe this could be actually bigger for those at home. There's anybody that has won 52, 52, 52, 52, then 50. Yeah. So they're able to win all right, but they didn't hit the 52% mark that he's referring to. And that is why, although the NDC won Greater Accra, they lost the national elections. And there's a good reason why he's saying that there's a certain buffer that helped the NPP. So ordinarily, the NPP should have lost the national elections. But although they lost the Greater Accra region, they had other regions giving them the support to cross the winning line. For the Greater Accra region, a number of factors could account for it, and some pollsters have indicated the fact that, especially in 2020, there was COVID. And the people who had registered, who had come into the Greater Accra region in the lead up to the elections, there was a lockdown. So it's not everybody that was able to move out back to their constituencies or regions that they had come in from. So people transferred their votes to the Greater Accra region, stayed here and voted. So it even changed the number dynamics in the Greater Accra region. And if you look typically at the people who were in the Greater Accra region as of the time, they have indicated that they are mostly people from close by regions, like the Volta region. Most people who were within Accra at the time of voting in 2020 were from the Volta region. So you can tell that they pushed the NDC's numbers up. However, they were not able to push it further beyond the 52%. But that is one indicator that a number of pollsters have found to be the reason why the NDC was able to win. Because looking at the margins the MPP won the national elections with, that didn't play out, especially in the Greater Accra region.
But some people in the NPP have argued that the decision to also make the voting day a holiday had a negative impact on them on election day, because they argue that, for instance, Accra Central, that's a very popular place for the NPP. And lots of the Aboso party dealers didn't turn up to work, who would have voted ordinarily. An interesting dynamic to look at, but I don't know what your thoughts are. And then let's look at how the Central region also mimics Accra.
The one thing I want to say is that both Central and Greater Accra had frustrations with the first term of the NPP administration. Okay. So, but they chose to deal with it differently. Greater Accra vented their frustration on the presidency. So they voted against the president, okay, and maintained the status quo of their parliamentarians. Central region did the opposite, the reverse. Okay. What they did was that they voted for the president, but rather punished the MPP MPs. So that is how the two swing regions decided to deal with their frustrations of the first term of the Akufo-Addo administration. So you can see that all of them had some sort of frustrations or maybe promises that were not fully fulfilled. But they chose different paths in dealing with their frustration. Central said, we give every president 8 years. Why don't we do the same for the MPP? Let us rather deal with the MPP MPs. Greater Accra said, why not? We are going for the president.
Yeah. So you're talking about the Greater Accra region. One very interesting swing constituency is the Adentan constituency. Yeah. I think it has a penchant of not repeating their candidate twice.
Yeah, they don't give anybody.
I think there's been one. Has there been an outlier? None?
Since 92, there probably will be one, but then over time, they just don't like allowing anybody to be in parliament for 2 terms. So maybe for those who are watching, we also spoke to a number of the constituents in this report. So let's pick that story, and then we'll come and look specifically at the Adentan constituency in terms of the numbers and how they look like. You're still watching Election360 on TV3. Today we are dissecting 2 key regions, but this time around our focus is on the Greater Accra region. And you know that one of the constituencies in the region that has gained notoriety of not allowing any member of parliament to go 2 times is the Adentan constituency. We sent a reporter out there to gauge the mood and the thoughts of the people, and has put together this report.
Adentan constituency, a bustling constituency located in the Greater Accra region, has emerged as a pivotal battleground ahead of the December 7 general elections. The constituency has long been the center of a political tug-of-war between the ruling NPP and the opposition, the NDC. The constituency has seen the opposition NDC win the presidential elections 4 times, while the ruling NPP has won once since its creation in 2004. On the parliamentary front, the situation mirrors a tight contest. A swing constituency since its inception, Adentan has produced 5 members of parliament, with Mohammed Adamu Ramadan of the NDC being the incumbent. Ramadan aims to be the first MP to break the one-term jinx that has plagued his predecessors. Presenting a formidable challenge to Mohammed Adamu Ramadan is Akosia Menu, the Deputy Chief Executive Officer of the National Youth Authority. Her candidacy has injected fresh energy into the NPP's campaign, positioning her as a strong contender in this high-stakes electoral battle.
As the election approaches, both parties are ramping up their efforts to win over voters. Campaign rallies, door-to-door engagements, and social media outreach are all in full swing as candidates strive to make their case. Adentan's electorate is diverse, comprising long-term residents and new arrivals. The question is, what will you consider before you vote?
You can see my road. I have a very bad road with big potholes. The dust is worrying me a lot. Every time we are having cold, and I think I have to vote for another person, that we need a change.
Adentan roads are very, very bad, especially from Victory First Decline, Neil gone, everything is out of control. Nothing is going on. The same old story now. So I don't see there's no sense. So now we keep Ramadan also. So we have to change it.
Our roads are bad, and cost of living now is very terrible.
Number 1, your ways to see a
Our roads are poor. It's even worse when it rains. Our gutters are also choked. People complain about water too. Although we pay water bills, our taps do not flow.
For some electorates, they may boycott the elections entirely, as the change they have sought for years has eluded them.
So far, I don't see any improvement. They are all the same, they are all lying to us here and there, because I don't see any improvement. So I'm not voting.
Me, I know they really vote safe. Whatever they are bringing, Charlie, they will talk about this and this and this, blah 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 blah. We can't do this. We can't do this. We know go see nothing.
Well, the mix in the Adentan constituency adds complexity to the political landscape, as different segments of the population have varying priorities and concerns, making them desire for more or a change or lose interest generally. Global Crosby and TV3 News, Adentan constituency.
Right, so Noble, thank you for that report, and that's the thoughts of many constituents in the Adentan constituency. Let's look at how they've been voting presidentially, and Eben walk us through that, those dynamics. So in 2004, what did we see? NDC won.
Yeah, so that was when the constituency was created, was carved out, and they are historically, when it comes to presidential, it's an NDC constituency. When it comes to presidential, right. It is more competitive in the parliamentary, just like the Jokuku and other constituencies. So the only time that the NDC won for presidential was in 2016, when Anadu came in. But
MPP.
The MPP won was in 2016. But historically, they are a safe seat for the NDC. And in 2020, I mean, the NDC has a high chance of just winning that particular constituency again. Looking at the trajectory of the voting pattern.
It's a safe region, a safe constituency presidentially for the NDC.
Yeah. But don't mess when it comes to the parliamentary.
Yeah, but even if you look at the numbers with which the NDC has won the presidential votes, it's so
very
when it was created 2004. NDC won, but then the margin was below 50. That was 49. 2008, 2012, and 2020, they've had about 53%.
Yeah.
The only time MPP won in 2016, they couldn't even push beyond 52%. So it tells you that the NDC is quite dominant, irrespective of the win percentage of the NPP, which was in 2016. They couldn't claw as much votes as the NDC has done over the period. So maybe we can safely say, this is anything to go by and it should remain constant. In 2004, the dynamics could look similar to what we've seen over the last few years.
All right, gentlemen, we'll have to draw the curtains here. Thank you so much for your time. This has been Election 360. I was joined by my colleague, Martin Asedo, and in-house analyst, Ebenezer Nimakunyako. He is founder and CEO of EN Analytics and Consulting Limited. Thank you so much. Catch you same time tomorrow. Stay safe.